Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Small Business Small Talk. It's a relaunch day. I'm so excited because there is a world of opportunity out there for a show like this, and I really am so very thankful for everybody that's going to show up, either this morning or at any time during any of these shows, because that's what this is going to be. It's more of a show than a group. Because what I want you to be able to do is just take everything that you're going to learn from the show. It's going to be kind of a cross between storytelling, interviews, training, all of that kind of stuff for small business. But I really would encourage you to go find those groups that are out there that you can plug into. I quite frankly don't have time to do everything by myself, so that's why this won't be a group to start. So I don't have plans for, this interactive group, but I want people to show up during the show. And that way you can share it in your groups. That way it becomes a resource more than just the interaction. I want you to take what you learned here and interact with everybody else and me. Like, let's connect and let's have some fun with this. So what is this really, what is in my head as to what small business small talk can be? And it just, well, quite frankly, the way the name came up, thank you, Eddie Bobbitt, who is the executive director for Camp Quality Kentuckiana. He's like, you need to have a show, Small Talk with Smallwood, because that's my last name, Christy Smallwood. And I was like, but I really want to talk business stuff most of the time anyway. It'll be, 90% business things. So why not small business small talk with Smallwood? And he's like, that works. That's good. So that's the genesis of the name. Where it's going to go, I still don't know. I want to have some fun with it. I want it to provide some value for everybody that shows up and watches and interacts while the show is going on or outside of the show, because I am finding in my experience with doing Facebook videos or videos in general is that a lot of people who watch interact with me in public. So they're able to have that one-on-one time of, I really liked what you had to say, or did you think about this, or that was interesting, or it creates the conversation. And that's what this stuff is for, is to help create those conversations. So a little bit of background, because this is actually a relaunch. This has been kind of an evolution of other ideas over the past few years. It originally started as Entre Networking. And so what that was is we had a group of people that would come together once a month, and I would do a networking show. And basically it was through the Zoom platform, which is fantastic. By the way, if you do video conferencing at all, I highly recommend it. It's super easy. So we would come together. Sometimes I would have a guest speaker, sometimes I wouldn't, and we would interact with each other. It was always something that we could learn, and it was from people all over the world. That was the beauty of doing things like this, is it's not people who are just next door to you, but these are, you now have the opportunity to network with everybody in the world. It can be overwhelming, so where do you start? So we'll talk about things like that too. But it originally started as that, and then it evolved into this small business small talk. So I have had guest speakers that are amazing, that teaches all kinds of different things. Some of my favorites are talking about masterminds, talking about email marketing. I even had the SBA on. How do you navigate the SBA? What does the SBA actually have for you, which is the Small Business Administration, if you're not aware. And it has a lot. So I am going to repurpose those into viewable chunks. I may replay them here, or you can go see them on the other platforms as well. And we'll be able to, over time, this is going to take a little, process to get it all squared away like I want it. But you'll be able to tap into those resources as well. As I find additional small business resources or business resources, let's cut the small part out for a second, just resources to help you grow you and your business, I will share those, because I am all about educating. How do I learn what I need to learn to get myself where I need to be to get the business moving forward? That's really the industry that I'm in, which is coaching and professional development, talent development, things like that. I'm on the constant lookout for, how do I level up? How can I keep moving forward? How do I get myself out of a funk? Like all of this stuff that plays in our heads. So that's that's in a nutshell what this kind of is looking like right now. I know it seems a little blah, however, it will all make sense as you see it come together. And for all of you that are going to watch me bring this together, I want you to take part in it. I want you to help me. I want your input. I want your vision as to what something like this could actually be like and where we could take it. So I really want your input. I don't want this to be all about me all the time, but it is good practice for me to be in front of the video again. So I thank you for your patience. So today I really wanted to start with, actually, I'm going to just share my story. So I am a small business. I am a solopreneur at the moment. I do have plans to bring on people this year, should everything work the way I hope that it works out, because I would like to employ people. But I started my own stuff, if you will, while I was working a corporate job. And honestly, at the time, I never realized I was kind of doing my own freelance thing until I lost the corporate job and had to do something, because jobs at that time, when 2008 and 2009 hit, there weren't jobs available very much in my industry. At the time, I was highly into marketing and advertising. There weren't jobs available, so you had to do something. And if you were resourceful, you created something. And that became, honestly, in our society, that rise of the entrepreneur, if you will. So I grasped onto that and created something of my own where I could provide some value to businesses, whether it be through project work or coaching. And coaching is still hard for some people to kind of grasp exactly what that is. I had a friend of mine who needed he just needed somebody to listen to him. And as I was asking him questions, he was like, you really need to be a life coach. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. After doing some research on what that particular service is, like, yeah, I kind of been doing that anyway. Why don't I get trained? So back to that knowledge. How do I develop a skill set to level up me and my business? So I just created a business around it. I got trained as an executive coach and started my own business. And it was a slow takeoff, let me tell you. So when you create something from scratch with zero capital, don't do what I did, okay? This falls under don't do what I did. It's really, really hard. It grows you as a person and builds your character more than anything. You have to decide very quickly. I had to decide very quickly what I was willing to give up to make it work. And so I got rid of a house that I had in the country, and I had landscaped that sucker, and I had a pool, and I had a barn, and I had peace and quiet. I gave all that up to move closer into a city where all of my clients were. So I reduced my overhead in my lifestyle so that I could have that freedom that I needed to be able to get the business to where I wanted it to be. And in the beginning stages of that, I was doing okay. I had a handful of, small handful of clients. It wasn't getting me where I wanted to be. So I met someone that could help me with sales. Sales and marketing are two different things. They need each other, right? It goes like this, sales and marketing. But I didn't have a good, strong sales skill set. So the person that I met at the time, we hit it off. He was one to train me in sales. We actually became good buddies. Like we both had the superhero thing going, and we developed a business model. We decided we like each other well enough. Let's develop our own business model. So we did, and we launched that business, and it was wrapped around the concept of CEO roundtables for small business specifically. So what it did is it gave those small business owners a place to come to share with each other trials and tribulations. It was like therapy for small business. But at the same time, they had a group of peers that they could bounce their ideas off of. This is something that I want to take to this. This is a new thing I want to bring to the market. What do y'all think? And it allowed those other people around the table to really ask hard questions. Like you were in the spotlight and you needed to be able to know your stuff well enough to answer those questions that everybody else had. And so it also became your team. Like you knew you could call that person up anytime and say, I've got this issue. Like, what do you think? And so they became their panel of advisors, if you will. And everybody needs that. Like, if you are in a small business right now, even if you are a one-man shop and you do not have a place to go to get some advice, to get some mentoring, to get shit off your chest when you're having a meltdown, find that support system. That's the other thing that happened to me when I launched my own business. And life happens. You know, you start a business and there's still other things going on in your life. And I was affected by other things going on in my friends' lives, because at the time I was staying in their house and they had decided to get a divorce. And now all of a sudden, nobody claimed me in that divorce as a friend. And so I'm off being a nomad for a while to try to figure out where to land. That disrupts any business movement, right? When you have personal things going on, it's specifically for small business, because as a small business person, that business is you. You are that business. It is really the hardest thing to do, to separate yourself, even to take a day off. Like, what the hell is a day off? This is why I do coaching for small businesses, because I want you to be able to go play for a little bit. I need you need to be at the top of your game, and part of that is to go play. And if I can help you carve that out, that's fantastic. So back at that point in time when life happens, and unfortunately the business partnership didn't last. The business model itself didn't take off like we wanted to, and so we had to make other choices. I circled back around a couple of different business concepts, one of which was doing immersive consultation. So think of the undercover consultant. Okay, so I'd go into a couple of small businesses, and at the time I went into one where everybody knew what I was doing, and I was part of the team. The other one where a handful only knew what I was doing and still part of the team. So I even served as a receptionist to make sure, but with the understanding that I'm going to evaluate everything in here, like the processes, the people, is everybody on the right seat on the bus, and is the bus the right kind of bus you need for this? Like, and where is the bus going once you turn it on? How do you turn it on? That whole kind of thing is, so how to get everything in alignment so that the business actually will move forward the way that you want it to. Always setting the vision for that ownership. And if the owners have lost their vision, how do they get that back? So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that I would help them with. And I realized that as I was doing that, there's so much that I learned over the course of my career, not just in corporate life. So my career has spanned, oh my gosh, I started my first job. It was cleaning floors in a hat factory in Salem, Indiana. Back in the day, Lee Webb, that's what that was called. My mom and my aunt both were seamstresses in this factory. And so I think I was 14, maybe 13, 14. I don't know that there was real child labor laws. Either that or we didn't tell them what my real age was, but I went and I cleaned. It was only for a few weeks during a summer to earn some extra money. But that was my first real paying job. And it was so funny because I do remember I asked if I could, because they were in a no window environment. I was like, can I paint a window on this wall? Because this is really depressing. I never wanted to work in manufacturing because I didn't like to just sit and do that same thing all day, every day. And I watch my mom do it. And, you know, it's not the most, a lot of people love that because that's just the way that they're made up. I'm like, I love you people that can do that because it drives me bonkers. But you do really good at it. And my mom made it a competition because it was like a piece rate deal. So the faster that she could get it through there in a quality manner, the more she got paid. So it was a competition. So you learn that kind of stuff. That was my first job. Then I moved into, of course, fast food. You know, teenagers, it's the easiest job to get is the fast food. I made salads at Hardee's. Yeah, that's what I did. And then Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut was interesting because I got hired to answer the phone. That's when Pizza Hut started delivery service. Yeah, I'm kind of aging myself. So Pizza Hut started delivery. I was on the phone, and because I had a good phone voice. Well, at the same time, during that summer, that was I got to that point of the senior year thing, and I also worked in radio. Now, the other thing that I also did was like my junior year, I worked, my mom had gotten her own education as a legal secretary. So she got a fancy schmancy job in the big city and at an attorney's office. And so I went during the summers and worked as a clerk. So I've ran the gamut of having administrative work, and that was just the start. Like, you go back in time and figure out all of this experience that you have, it might amaze you. Okay, so I did clerical work for a while. I managed to navigate downtown Louisville, which was a huge city for me, coming from not even Salem, Indiana. It was in the halfway between Salem and civilization. So, also known as Beck's Mill. It's a little four-way stop. Sometimes it's on the map, sometimes it's not. So from there, doing the Pizza Hut thing, answering the phones, I also was in radio. So WSLM on Radio Ridge in Salem, Indiana, we even have, that I think they still do, have the weather bird. So every hour or so it comes on, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It's 8 o'clock, and then the weather bird came on after and gave you what the weather was going to be like today. It was crazy, but awesome crazy for me at the time, because I love radio. I love music. I love everything about it. This was back in the day. At this station, they still had these big chunky tapes that you'd have to put on the magnet and clean it off and then reuse it to record a commercial. Awesome. It was so fun. So fast forward a little bit from that job, going from a small town on money to a big town on money, there's a big price difference on how much you can get paid. So then I went into, did the legal secretary thing for a while. I actually started working at a temp service. So I was bounced around a lot as a secretary. And I landed at radio. Yes! One of the biggest stations in town. It was WAMZ. It was summertime. OMG. Summertime, that's when the tours come in. So I got to see all kinds of stars. When I say stars, we're talking like Billy Ray Cyrus star. I got to meet Billy Ray Cyrus. This was when Miley was just born, if that gives you any indication how cool that was at the time. So I got to meet a handful of stars that came through for their tours, for the state fairs and things like that. And then from there, I got a job at an ad agency. And this was like the most sophisticated temp job I'd ever had. And I remember it being crazy because you never knew what was going to happen in this environment. They had so many different creative clients, and oh my gosh. And the guy who trained me was moving into IT because that was becoming the thing, like all the computer stuff, and you need to have security. And so I'm watching the evolution of all this while I'm being a typist, and we're talking 36-hour work straight. And then all of a sudden one day, a guy in a gorilla suit shows up in front of my desk looking for Daryl. And so I was like, he went that way. That's all I had. I didn't know what was going to happen. He had gotten a stinging telegram for his birthday, I think it was. And so this gorilla was walking around the ad agency looking for this guy. It was ridiculous. Those were the good old days, right? But we still create those magical moments of memories that we can relive. At the time at that agency, they were considered probably technically a medium-sized company because it had over 100 employees. So when we're talking about small business to big business, there's a different definition. It depends on where you're looking and what you want to consider yourself. Now, obviously, one-man shops are small businesses. In fact, I think we are called micro businesses because it's just us. However, you start getting into that stage of you add on employees. The more employees you have, obviously, the bigger you become. It's not so much about the revenue, because even a one-person shop can produce hundreds of thousands, even $1 million a year. So it's not so much about the revenue as it is the employee base. How many people do you have in your company? And that determines whether it's small, medium, large. Manufacturing works differently, I think, according to the government standards. I think they go by both number of employees and revenue or output of that. So there's different standards of what's considered a small business. The ones that I love to work with have 50 employees or less. Those are the family-owned businesses that still have family working for them. And so family gets a little interesting. And every employee is brought in and treated like family. And so it's a totally different dynamic to work with that kind of a company versus that company that has the 1,000 employee mindset. Even if they only have 75 people, which is really crazy. I just worked with a company like that last year who I think they had 75 people, anywhere 75 to 80 something people on staff across multiple locations. They had the mindset of 1,000+ employee corporate entity without a definition of culture or vision or direction or the leadership wasn't really involved. And so it was just really interesting. And that's what the thing about small business is, just so interesting to try to keep up with. So there's a lot of this kind of stuff. We'll hone in on during the show different topics. We'll pick topics sometimes. Today is a little bit of everything mix because I'm incorporating my story into it. Some other things that I've learned along the way is that it really takes a good, solid, intentional balance of how you're living your life and how you're working your business. And so this is that work-life balance when, in fact, as small business owners, we've incorporated everything all day, every day. So even when we go out to play, we're talking business. We're talking about where we want to take our business or things that are happening with our employees or things that's going on in the industry and how new tax cuts are going to affect our bottom lines. Like all of this stuff, we can't just not talk shop all the time. So our brains are wired for what it is that we're doing. At that moment that you can separate yourself and have the business be its own entity away from you, that's when real magic starts to happen, because now that business becomes more scalable and you get to continue with the vision of where you want to take this entity. That way, like bunches of billionaires out there do, they create another entity and do the same thing with that. So not only is the one business scalable, but so are you, because then you can duplicate that type of effort into other businesses that can then continue to grow. So what do you want to do with your business? If you are a small business now, where do you want to take it? What do you ultimately see? Like if you had no restrictions to it, everything you possibly needed to get things done, that was off the table. What do you want to do? What do you really want to do? And if you're thinking to that point of, well, I can only get this much done, if you have this at all, you're not thinking big enough. I can tell you that from my own personal experience. I've limited myself a lot. And I'm working this year to not limit myself. But that's going to take my tribe of people helping me get out of my funk of mindset and into a place of, it is. It's that abundance mindset. Like, how big can I think? And then how do I get to that point of thinking through what is the first step? Like, there is a first step that could get me there, and all the things along the way. But that's what I want this to be able to do is, so as you're taking that first and next step, you've got resources available to you that you can grasp onto or come together and just be encouraged in a day if you need it, and not in a way to go, in a real sense, like, what the hell are you thinking today? Because if you are thinking hellish thoughts, you need to stop yourself and get them out of the way. Like, get back behind me, Satan. Ain't got time for you at all. So when those thoughts come into play, you have to be able to get them set aside. I work with other businesses like that too. Business owners, I mean, we are constantly in it. Like, what are you thinking? Like, what is the things that you are thinking about right now? And how is that attracting more negative stuff? And how can we reframe it so that the situation hasn't changed, but we've reframed how we're thinking about that situation so that we can behave differently in it? That's a huge trick. I mean, it's a habit, it's a practice You've got to try, you got to keep practicing it over and over and over again. So even through all of this little randomness, one of the biggest things that I have learned is that as small business owners, period, if you are in a C-level position, if you are a team leader, if you are in charge of anything at all, including your own life, the power resides up here. It really is all in our head. So we'll be talking a lot about mindset throughout all of this, like how our thoughts really are the superpower to move us forward, keep us stagnant, or make us fall off the cliff. Like, how do we get our heads wrapped around our own resourcefulness, our own power to be able to do all of this? So with that, I want to kind of wrap up for today. Some things that will be coming up. Again, look for all of the materials that I'll be able to put out, the repurposed shows, if you will. You'll see some of them that have the Entre Networking on it. Just overlook that part. Know that it's evolved. But I've got a good year of content that I'm going to repurpose and put out there for your all's perusement and enjoyment. There's sometimes that are hilarious moments in there. But I also want to talk about some things that are coming up. Like in the state of Kentucky, there has been some budget cuts proposed. And part of those budget cuts will also include the inability to fund the Small Business Development Center. And that is it. No, we don't need that to happen. So we're going to talk about how do we rally behind keeping the resources that we need for small business accessible to us. And I want to be able to help be that voice that if you don't know about those resources, you really need to know about some of these resources. They're amazing and free to you to tap into. But if the government cuts that funding, we no longer have that resource available to us. Even though I'm a trainer, I can come in and train you on stuff. It's a free service. Why would we want to get rid of that for our own? Like, it doesn't make sense. So we're going to talk about that next time. The other thing that we're going to talk about is how to work with chambers. Like, what's the big deal about the chamber? I want to help educate that too, because quite frankly, I've been involved with chambers now for a good, since 2010, however long that's been. So working with them, how do you get involved in your community and how do you give back? So I might be able to find some people who want to join me on that conversation. That'd be awesome. But in the meantime, I thank you so much for either being here or watching this program. And I thank you for supporting me out in public that this is a good idea. And it'll take a while to get it all launched the way that I want it to and grow an audience nationwide, because I want to be able to help everybody that I possibly can at any point in time. So whether that be you're watching this at 1 a.m. because you're having insomnia, but hopefully you've laughed a little and learned something. So that's always the whole point. We need to laugh, especially at ourselves. Oh, good grief. We got to stop and laugh every day. So spend the rest of your day. Go play. Go enjoy this gorgeous day. I did not mean to rhyme, but it was Dr. Seuss time this week. So with that, I can't believe I got through that. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you guys. This has been Christy Smallwood with Small Business Small Talk. Be on the lookout, on the hear out for more, and share this with your friends so they know to join in the fun as well. Talk to you later.